Glenn Wright, President and CEO of PDA, here at PDA Week. I mean, we are having a great time. We got great sessions, we got a great exhibit hall, hundreds and hundreds of people. And I had the distinct pleasure of being here with Dr. Christopher Wright, MD, psychiatrist, lots of experience. And he's been helping PDA a little bit. We've been talking about decision making and really how do people make decisions, things they need to think about. We think about people on the shop floor, that guy who's got to make that decision, release that lot, not release that lot, all the things going on in their mind around, patients need to get this medicine, oh man, the company needs to continue to do well financially. All these things they're thinking about. And Christopher, just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, how do people, what do they need to think about when they're trying to make a good decision? They've got all this stuff going on.
Yeah, it's a great question with the factors involved of whether it be not only at work, but then as a human being, all the things culturally, religion, at home, biologically, even within their own genetic makeup. Being in those positions where they're having to make either snapshot decisions or even something prolonged, there's things, whether it be the pressure in those moments, who they have to be accountable for and how they're managing that stress. How each person approaches that is different. Are there any specific things within even that example that you could apply a snapshot or a quick judgment call that you've experienced?
Oh, that I've experienced. Yeah, I think when you're sitting there and you've heard your boss's boss say, boy, we're going to short the market if we don't get this lot out, and you're trying to sit there and go, did it meet all the release criteria that it needed to meet? So you're sitting there thinking, boy, what decision do I need to be a little flexible here? Did it meet enough? Is it over that line? Or what? No, it didn't, right? And so how do you make sure that you're not getting too influenced by those questions? Yeah.
Love it. With that, so let's say with that example, we have this very important decision needing to be made. On one hand, what's the sleep like the night before? Even in that moment, whenever the person's put in that position by their administrator. Okay, if that's compromised already, that's something tentatively working against them. If they, depending on the communication and how open their communication or the dynamics with their administrators or employees, that's very much going to affect a lot of this. In that example in itself, their own morals, not just politically and job-wise, but if I don't get this out or if something happens, people's lives are at risk. In those situations, again, applying it, in this case, communication, focusing on frequently reassessing where you're at with your team.
Yeah, you made a great point, which I hadn't even thought about. What was the person's sleep like the night before? Mm-hmm. Because again, you're being pushed for a snap decision, but the decision may be, I'm not ready to make a snap decision. Mm-hmm. I can't make that decision. I need to take time to think about it and make sure that I'm in the right mental framework to make that decision. So you're going to have to give me a couple hours while I kind of work through it, or maybe it's, I can't tell you till tomorrow. And we all know in pharma, things can wait a day, right? Mm-hmm. And but I never really thought about that. An individual's sleep, they come to work tired. They've got these pressures. Mm-hmm. They're going to act different than if they had a really great night's sleep. Mm-hmm. They're in a good mood. They're engaged, So, I always like that story. You always hear about some leaders who say, I do not make a decision after 12 o'clock noon because I get tired and I don't make good decisions in the afternoon. And I actually never really thought about when do I make the best decisions, right? Mm-hmm. But that's really something to think about.
Absolutely. And that is part of even the recommendations at times, whether I'm giving advice to larger groups or just individuals in clinical practice, is if a stressor is, I've got these decisions to make, what can I do to best optimize that? Looking at your best window of time. For some folks, and it can be variable, but for some folks, that is much earlier in the day. If you consider things like our hormones, such as the cortisol, those types of things cause stress and affect our thinking and are at different levels throughout the day. Kind of finding out where our specific sweet spot is something we can do on our own. The part of even, I'm not making a decision past this time, hey, take into consideration lunchtime. If somebody's already been awake for a certain amount of time, the fatigue, if they've had a nice hefty meal and a nice juicy steak or something for dinner, and they then are tanking, they're having a sugar crash after a nice hefty dessert as well, then that in itself is going to affect it. So trying to put your more important decisions earlier in the day would be a recommendation.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm always interested in how I hack my brain, right? How do I hack my brain to make it perform better? And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, if I were younger and I were in these positions again, I'm not so sure I would not be working to understand when I should make a decision. Let's say I've got too much pressure coming from the supervisors or coming from this group or that group. I may decide the time is not right at this time to make the decision because I am feeling too much pressure from others. And my decision needs to be based on facts and information. So, I'm just thinking about, putting together my list of how to hack my brain. Well, Glenn, don't make decisions in the afternoon. Don't make decisions after a big old lunch where you're kind of tired, you're kind of groggy. Hey Glenn, when you sit there and you think, and you're like, I've got a lot of people telling me a lot of stuff right now that's kind of making me think too much, not about what the right decision is, but about things that might be affected by that decision. And I'm supposed to really make the best decision, right? Kind of interesting. It's a totally different way of thinking about how you might want to make a decision.
Hey, and planning that ahead is one less thing, again, you have to do on the spot in that moment.
Yeah, and it could be different for everybody. So
Absolutely.
You would say, these are the factors that I have to worry about because I've really taken a step back and really kind of worked on and looked through and figured out what are the key things I need to do, right, when I make a decision. And that might be perfect for me, and then I go over here and I'm somebody else, and that list may be entirely different, it sounds like.
Sure.
We're complex, aren't we?
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse, I suppose.
Yeah. So Christopher is helping us as we frame out our good decision-making practices for pharmaceutical manufacturing, which we hope to have out here in a little while to really help the industry. But we're going to be talking about this particular kind of topics around how you make good decisions as part of that. So I thank you for all the help you've given us so far, and thank you for the help in the future.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Likewise.